Hey everybody, this is Jack Hammer. I wanted to jump on here and give you the good, the bad, the ugly from the 49ers game this week against the Chicago Bears. The 49ers took that 4-game losing streak into Chicago this week, put an end to it with a 33-22 victory over the Bears at Soldier Field. With the victory, the 49ers keep their playoff hopes alive. Now let's take a look at the 5 questions I asked before the game and see how those answered out and how they played out. Number 1, will it be a happy homecoming for Jimmy Garoppolo? Absolutely yes. Coming off his worst game of the season, facing a Bears defense that was playing without star pass rusher Khalil Mack, Garoppolo rebounded with one of his best performances since 2019. Garoppolo would complete 17 of 28 passes for 322 yards against the Bears. He also ran the ball in for 2 touchdowns during the second half. One of those was on a read option for a gain of 5, and I think that was the second of the 2. That came in the fourth quarter. During the first half, the 49ers passing game was slowed a bit by drops. Deebo Samuel had 2 on the opening possession alone. Then Mohamed Sanu would drop 1 on 3rd and 7 to end the 49ers' third drive of the game. They were kind of sputtering at that point. But then at the end of the second quarter, on their 4th possession of the game, taking the ball over with only 1:15 left to play, Garoppolo would find Brandon Ayuk with a pair of completions, short completions, but they would still gain 21 yards to move the chains. Garoppolo would then hit Deebo Samuel deep with a post pass for a gain of 50 yards to set up a field goal as time expired. Garoppolo would continue that hot finish from the first half and carry that into the second half. During that second half, he'd complete 7 of his 9 passes for 159 yards in those 2 touchdown runs that I mentioned earlier, while leading the 49ers to a 24-point second half. Big come from behind victory for the 49ers, partly on the arm of Garoppolo, with a lot of help from Deebo Samuel, and as you see in a few minutes, some of the other players as well in the offense. Number 2 was, can the 49ers manage to play a clean game? Yes. After the 49ers have been struggling with pass interference penalties, so the 49ers went in and really emphasized some different techniques to help limit those this last week during practice. And they would go through this game against Chicago without a single pass interference penalty. Some of that probably had to do with soft coverage in the secondary, which was used to really try to force the Chicago rookie quarterback Justin Fields into throwing underneath and being consistent. We won't know if the issues have been fixed really until we get the 49ers get up against a quarterback that's going to be throwing the ball downfield. Kind of like what we saw earlier in the season in week 3 with Aaron Rodgers, or even last week in the rain with Carson Wentz. The other area that the 49ers cleaned up was their turnovers. During that 4-game losing stretch that the 49ers just snapped, they had committed 8 during that time. But today, they would not turn the ball over for the first time since their Week 2 victory over Philadelphia. Nice turnaround for the 49ers offense, nice turnaround for their defense as far as that goes. Number 3, can the 49ers take advantage of Justin Fields? This is the one area that they didn't really take advantage of, and I put this down as a no. The reason was that the rookie was able to complete 19 of 27 passes for 175 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. The interception coming late with the 49ers up 33-22. It's really kind of just more of a Hail Mary situation. So he gets knocked on that one. But you're just taking a shot there, hoping for the best. So that's understandable. Still, he completed 70% of his passes. And on top of that, he was able to run the ball 10 times for 103 yards and a touchdown. We saw Fields flash the dynamic playmaking ability that's made him one of the top quarterback prospects in the draft. He repeatedly was able to beat the 49ers defense with short throws, taking what they were giving him, and beat him with his legs when needed. The highlight of the day really, though, came in the fourth quarter with Chicago down 23-16, facing 4th and 1 at the San Francisco 22-yard line. Fields ran a play action, started rolling out to his right, only to find Eric Armstead in his face. The rookie would make Armstead miss, and then he'd be able to weave his way around through the 49ers defense around the left side on a tremendous 22-yard touchdown drive. And the 49ers scrambled, and the 49ers really got a break there when Cairo Santos missed the extra point after that, keeping the 49ers up 23-22. Number 4, this was about the running game. If the 49ers can get the running game going, can they keep it going? And the answer to that was yes. This is something that we've seen the 49ers struggle with. They've had a number of times this year where they've got the running game going early on, and then we've seen it sputter. But today, San Francisco found something that worked against the Chicago defense, and they kept coming back to it when they needed a big play. This is opposite of what we saw last week against Indianapolis. Elijah Mitchell would gain 137 yards on 18 carries for the day, but it was his 3 most explosive runs that paved the way for those numbers. The 49ers found success with a toss sweep to the left side, gaining 92 yards on 3 of those. Let's look at what happened after that with those plays. 49ers on their second possession, opening up their second possession of the game, first down, was a toss play to Mitchell sweeping around the left side. He would take that down 26-yard, big 26-yard gain, and that position would end up in a field goal. Then, in the second half, on their third possession, Kyle Shanahan would go back to that again, and this time Mitchell would be able to rip off a gain of 27. That possession would end with a touchdown when Jimmy Garoppolo ran the read option in for 5 yards and a score. Then finally, with a lead at 30-22 late in the fourth quarter, Shanahan would go back to that toss sweep once again, and this time it'd be Mitchell ripping off a 39-yard gain to set the 49ers up in the field goal position to ice the game at 33-22. As I mentioned, after going away from the counter runs that were working early against Indianapolis last week, it was good to see Shanahan keep going back to what had worked. He needed it over and over throughout the game at various points, especially when it was most important for them to get those big plays and come back, and then not only come back, pull away, and solidify the win. And number 5, can San Francisco stop the Bears' running game? This is no and yes, and quite frankly, I think this has really played one of the biggest roles in the way that this game finished. The 49ers defense struggled to contain the running of Justin Fields throughout the game, and rookie Khalil Herbert was able to slash through the 49ers defense until getting banged up, and the 49ers made some adjustments. The 2 rookies led a Chicago running game that would gain 176 yards on the day on 36 attempts. The difference, though, in this game was the ability of the 49ers defense to adjust at halftime. After allowing Herbert to run through them for 66 yards on 13 carries in the first half, mostly on runs to the left side, the 49ers defense made the necessary adjustments at halftime. In the second half, the San Francisco defense was able to hold Herbert to only 6 yards on 10 carries. Huge difference, really put the strain on Justin Fields to have to carry the offense, and that's, I think, why we saw the Bears, after scoring 16 points in the first half, only able to come out and score 6 throughout the entire second half. One more thing before I move on and we wrap this up. Been seeing a lot of talk after the game about the 49ers and how bad the 3 teams are that they've beaten. Yes, we know the Bears they're 3-4, but remember they were 3-3 coming into this game. We knew that Detroit was going to be bad going into this season. They were not a good team last year, new head coach and everything. We knew they were going to struggle. Same thing with Philadelphia. And the 49ers just finally wrap up a 4-game losing streak with a victory. And one of the first things that I'm seeing on Twitter is how bad the teams are that the 49ers beat. Well, let me remind you guys of something real quick if I can. In 2019, when the 49ers went to the Super Bowl, they beat a lot of bad teams early on. They started off their season with 8 wins to start that year, but in doing so, they beat a lot of bad teams. When you look at that game, when you look back, here's the quarterbacks that they beat in the first half of the 2019 season to get off to that start. Jameis Winston, 2 pick sixes in that game in the opener against Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston, middle of the road quarterback in the NFL. Andy Dalton. Dalton hasn't been a very good quarterback throughout the last 5 years. That Bengals team was not very good in 2019. The 49ers dominated, blew them out. Week number 3, Ben Roethlisberger is hurt. Mason Rudolph in for the Steelers. 49ers win. The next game, Cleveland, Baker Mayfield as a rookie. Not good. Week after that, Jared Goff. Everybody around the 49ers that watches the 49ers understands who Jared Goff is and what that means. Then they go into Washington, and they beat a Washington team 9-0 with a quarterback named Case Keenum, another stellar NFL quarterback that they beat there. Then they go against Carolina the week after that. Kyle Allen, not Cam Newton, is the quarterback in that win. And then they wrap it up with Kyler Murray, who also, like Baker Mayfield, was a rookie that year. So, yeah, the 49ers, in the year they went to the Super Bowl, part of the reason they went to the Super Bowl was because they came out and they blew teams out. That they beat teams early on in that season that weren't good. And that's what got them out to an 8-0 record, to where the point where they were, when they finished 5-3 over the second half, they were still able to be the top team in the NFC. So that's definitely something to think about. You know, the 49ers have struggled, and they just won a game. Be happy. Enjoy it. Is this team going to go be a Super Bowl team? Probably not. Is this team going to make the playoffs? They're in for a fight of their lives if they're even going to reach that. They're 3-4. Who knows? They might be able to take on a Arizona team next week without Kyler Murray. Is that a plus for the 49ers? Absolutely. And I've already seen people who've downgraded the possibility that they win next week because it's not against Kyler Murray. Jimmy G getting the benefit of the doubt with getting to beat a bad quarterback again next week. Let's stop that. This team is got to win, and that's all that matters. That is all that matters. And whether it's, Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, whatever, Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy that the 49ers keep playing. Whether he's the quarterback of the future or not, he's the one that keeps getting put out there. You don't have to like the decision. I can understand that the folks that don't, but that doesn't mean that the 49ers don't like him. If they didn't like him, they wouldn't keep playing him. So, today's game, the other thing I keep seeing is how this game wasn't about Jimmy Garoppolo. This game was about Deebo Samuel. This game was about different whatever. And take this for what it's worth. I'm a little bit older, so I've watched the 49ers for a long time. And I remember Joe Montana's greatest game, and I'm not trying to compare Jimmy Garoppolo to Joe Montana because there is no comparison. Joe Montana is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Jimmy Garoppolo is a quarterback. But in Joe Montana's biggest game, where he threw for 462 yards against the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football, he had 2 touchdowns of 90-plus yards to John Taylor. Neither one of those was on a deep throw. They were both on short slant routes that went about 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And the wide receiver took the ball the rest of the way. Today, similar situation to Deebo Samuel. Easy screen pass, and the receiver makes a tremendous play. And he should get all of the credit for that. Jimmy Garoppolo should get the credit for getting it to him, which is an easy throw. But that's part of the game. Every quarterback in the history of the NFL has needed wide receivers to make plays for him in order to be successful. You don't do it on your own. And that's one of the great things about football. One of the reasons I like football more than any other sport is because it is an entire team game. You're not going to go out there and you're not going to go out and win games off the back of one guy. It doesn't matter how good. There are some transcendent quarterbacks in the NFL that can carry teams, but there's about 4 of those. The rest of the time, these guys need help from everybody else that's around them, and that Jimmy Garoppolo falls into that category. And I'm just going to bring this one up really quick. Someone needs to be, comparing Jimmy Garoppolo to Joe Montana in the comparison. If you don't understand the fact that I just did not compare the two, I don't know what you're listening to. I didn't say that Jimmy Garoppolo was Joe Montana. I said that Jimmy Garoppolo got help today, just like every quarterback. And I gave you an example from 49ers history. Not telling you that, and I told you, I prefaced it by saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is not Joe Montana. That was the first part of what I said. There was no comparison there. It was an example. Not being mad isn't being happy after this game. I'm not upset, but I'm not happy either. Why would I be happy beating weak teams? Lance's development perfect right now, but Jimmy's here. But here's Jimmy. Again, the 49ers won a game. The 49ers have told you, going back to March, that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be the quarterback this year. They told you that in March. They keep repeating it over and over and over again. You can not like the fact that they're not playing him. And by him, I mean Trey Lance. Lance's day is going to come. And just because he doesn't play this year doesn't mean he's not going to be effective next year or the year after when they finally get him in the game. Unless you believe that the 49ers coaches just don't know how to coach. There's been plenty of times when guys who've come in and they sit, they learn, they're getting reps in practice. Kyle Shanahan is already, one of the things that I learned this week that I didn't know prior, and it makes a lot of sense. And didn't come from Kyle Shanahan, it actually came from Mike McDaniel. We know that Trey Lance is running a lot of plays in practice. He's running the 49ers scout team going up against the 49ers defense. And one of the things that the 49ers coaching staff is doing is they're going through and they're looking at their opponent's plays, and they're trying to find, as they put them on the cards for the team to run, they are putting that information in the 49ers terminology, so that if Trey Lance is running the scout team for the 49ers against the 49ers starting defense, and the play is supposed to be, I don't know, let's just say, I don't know what the name is, but let's just say it's going to be a play action route with a streak on one side and over route coming from the other side with a man in the flat. That's a concept the 49ers run all the time. So they're putting that play together in the 49ers terminology. So even though he's running the scout team against the 49ers first team defense, and he's not, he's not running the starting offense, but he's running a 49ers concept with 49ers terminology, just like he would running another play. The reason that's an important thing to remember or think about, if you watch my videos long enough, you're going to know that I was a big fan of Mac Jones. One of the things that Mac Jones did at Alabama, when he was sitting behind guys like Tua and Jalen Hurts before that, was that he was running the scout team. And so here's a guy that's out there running a scout team, going up against the best defense in the league, week after week after week. And so by the time that he gets called in to have to play his first start as a junior in 2018, was it 18? No, excuse me, 2019, he wasn't nervous. He'd been going up against the best defense all year long anyway. He just wasn't doing it in a game. He was doing it on the practice field day after day after day. And that's what's happening right now with Trey Lance. So I understand he's not getting the game reps in front of us, but he's getting the reps. And he's getting reps in the 49ers offense, even though it's the scout team, because of the work that the coaches are putting in. Now, the other thing to think about was today, the 49ers didn't have George Kittle. Sure, they weren't going up against Khalil Mack, so that's a benefit for the 49ers, but they still didn't have George Kittle. They've been beaten up a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. But this was a good win, and I'm struggling to get behind the narrative that this was a weak win against a weak opponent. It was Jimmy Garoppolo playing the same as he's always played, just getting the breaks because of the plays. That's not right. We've seen Garoppolo's had one really bad game this year. That was Indianapolis, and even in the Indianapolis game, it wasn't probably as bad as what most people made that out to be when you consider the conditions and whatnot. Because I understand that the people said, well, Carson Wentz got it done. Well, Carson Wentz completed about the same percentage of passes as Garoppolo did. Today in the first half, Garoppolo was 10 of 19 for 163 yards passing. He had 3 drops. 2 by Deebo Samuel, 1 by Mohamed Sanu. The one by Sanu would have extended a drive because it was on third down and he was past the sticks for the catch. Another of those incompletions was a spike. So instead of being 10 for 19, think of that as Garoppolo should have been 13 of 15. Totally changes the way you look at that game. And they killed themselves early in the game in the first half with a couple of penalties. There was a holding call and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's kind of my take on today's game. I thought it was a good one. And I think that right now the 49ers are sitting there at 3-4. They have now jumped ahead of Chicago because they have the head-to-head. I believe the 49ers are going to be ahead of Atlanta as well in the playoff race because both teams are 3-4, and I think the 49ers have a better conference record. The 49ers are still going to play Atlanta this year. The 49ers get to now play against Arizona, which by all reports that I'm hearing is going to be without Kyler Murray. So no Kyler Murray. Hopefully the 49ers can beat a team led by I can't remember his name right now. It's the guy that was a quarterback from Texas, Colt McCoy, I think is their backup quarterback. So can the 49ers beat an Arizona team without Colt McCoy? I would hope so. If the 49ers can get to 4-4 next week, you're starting to see, again, I understand it's against a team that has some injury issues. That's how you win in the NFL. You've got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, like an Arizona team without Kyler Murray, like a Chicago team with a rookie quarterback that doesn't have Khalil Mack, like the Philadelphia, like the Detroits. You win those games, and you need to go 500 or better against those teams that are the better teams. You've got to beat Green Bay. Maybe split the games with Green Bay and Indianapolis. That's the difference in this season for the 49ers right now, and we'll see where we end up. But through the first 7 games, the 49ers are 3-7. They have 10 weeks to go. We'll see where they go, if they can keep stacking wins like they did today together, or if they fall on their face. If the 49ers can get to 4-4, I still kind of consider week 8 the halfway point. If the 49ers can get to 4-4 next week, I think the 49ers have a good shot of continuing on. They've got to put 2 wins to get back-to-back wins together, and get that taken care of. And like Philip says here, don't care. Win is a win, and that's the way it is in the NFL. You win games, and winning in the NFL is harder than winning anywhere else. This isn't high school football where you're playing little Jimmy's preschool over here, and you're going to beat them. This is grown men playing against each other. The margin of victory week in and week out is a few plays here and a few plays there. The 49ers today really won the game because they didn't make the mistakes they usually make. They didn't have a pass interference penalty, so they give up chunks of yards on pass interference penalties. They never turned the ball over. So it was a pretty good win for the 49ers all around. And hopefully you enjoyed that and are ready to go and watch what's going to happen next week against Arizona. I think that's going to give us a little bit better understanding of where this 49ers quarterback situation is, because they're going to be going up against a defense that held this team to 10 points the first time they played them. So hope you all enjoyed the show. And thank you for listening to what I had to say about the game today. I really appreciate it. If you could go ahead and, if you liked what I saw, if you could like it, comment, subscribe, do all those types of things, that'd be fantastic. Love talking to all of you folks every week. And I will be back for sure on Tuesday night with an episode of Niner Chatter to take your calls and discuss where the 49ers are. And would love to hear from as many of you as possible to discuss your take on the 49ers and where they're going forward. And really just hear from you. So have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment, all those kind of things. And I appreciate y'all for joining. Have a great rest of your day.